This video is all about the shocking Florida housing market lie you should know. And please be careful. Hello, friends. Welcome back. It's a great day in South Florida. And before we get too far into the biggest shocking lie that you must know, I think it's important to understand that inflation is on the uptick. And despite whatever rosy picture they are trying to paint about the economic conditions and the economy, inflation is not going away. And one of the biggest factors in the inflationary environment, one of the biggest line items that is creating inflation is shelter price. And shelter price accounted for much of this inflationary rise. In fact, it contributed to more than 2/3 of the headline increase. And the leading indicator that the market does not like this number is the fact that the stock market, the Dow, has fallen 700 points to session lows on hotter than anticipated inflation data. And I suspect if you've been watching for a while, you know by now that I used to be a stockbroker. I was in the financial services industry for damn near 20 years, and I specialized in trading stocks. And while I know that the stock market, the equities market, prices and change instantaneously in real time, I also know the market, no likey, these inflationary numbers. But the housing market, the Florida housing market, and really any other real estate or housing market is very different. It's a lagging number. It's a lagging market. It takes a long time for the housing market to catch up with whatever changes have happened in any other market. But I recently stumbled across something that I had to share with you because I realized that I'm part of the problem. I'm one of the people who has been sharing this massive, dangerous, shocking lie. And obviously, I wasn't doing it intentionally. I didn't know what I didn't know. I believe that right now, Florida homeowners and most homeowners in my market are sitting on a metric shit ton of home equity. And while, yes, it's true, there are many folks who are sitting on a tremendous amount of home equity, home equity, is not real until it's realized. And yes, you can use your house as a piggy bank. And yes, you can pull money out of your house if the terms and conditions are right. But many folks have already done that. And I suspect many more are going to continue to do that into the future, even if it ends up hurting them in the long run. And to be totally transparent, I was somewhat surprised when I met with a neighbor at a Super Bowl party this past Sunday, when he shared with me what he thought he had in home equity, what he thought his home was valued at. And he asked me, and while I had a ballpark figure of what I thought his home was worth and could give him an instant opinion in real time while we were sitting there watching the football game, he wanted to learn more information. And so yesterday we had a little bit of a more in-depth conversation, and I got to understand exactly where he's at from a financial perspective. And what I came to learn is that he doesn't have anywhere near the equity that he thought he did. But home equity is not a one-trick pony. Home equity is not something that only goes higher. Home equity is dynamic. It goes up and down, just like the market. And while it's factually true, many markets in my market have gone substantially higher. And in some markets, because there's such a scarcity of resource, home prices continue to skyrocket. But to be clear, it's not every market, and it's not even every market in my market. There are lots of folks out there that simply don't have any clue how much home equity they actually have. But I wanted to get to the bottom of exactly where we're at because I've been going around telling everybody that most folks are sitting on a metric shit ton of home equity. But what you can clearly see on the screen and what I'm about to go into with you is the fact that that's not true. As per PropWire, which is a service that I subscribe to, as per PropWire, there are 28, damn near 29,000 single family homes in Palm Beach County that have very little equity. And to be abundantly clear, these homes are not all for sale. They are not all on the market. This is a macro number based on their analytics, but it absolutely demolishes the notion that everyone is sitting on a metric shit ton of equity. And frankly, I was shocked to learn how many people are not in that position. I did not expect that number to be 29,000 homeowners in my market. And I suspect most of those 29,000 homeowners have no clue that they are very close to going negative equity, which means if you want to sell your home, you're stroking the bank a check. And I also know by the time everyone feels the financial pain of all of the things that are likely to happen at some point in the future, when everybody wants to hit the exit door at the same time, well, if you're on the border of having equity and not having equity, chances are you are in big trouble, because at that point, when everybody wants to sell, your home is definitely not going to be worth what you thought it was. And the home equity, which you don't even have now, but you think you do, it will not be there. It will have vaporized. And if you don't know that, chances are you are in for a massive life change. And I don't want anybody to be in for a massive life change. And I don't want anybody to be shocked or hurt by the truth, which is why I'm sharing it with you now. But what you can see on the screen, and I changed the background of the map because frankly, I think it looks cooler. But what you can see is that there are damn near 29,000 homes that have almost no equity. And I sorted this by percentage of equity that is in the home. And I know that this is probably not 1000% accurate, but it's close enough to give you the disturbing truth that you need to know. And what you can find is that this particular, to be clear, these are only single family homes. This homeowner only has 19% equity in the home, if we believe what PropWire is saying, which I have no reason to doubt. But 19% equity, if they were to sell their home, by the time they're done with closing costs and commissions and everything else that's normally done in a traditional sale, well, they're really only sitting with roughly 9% equity. And while I don't know any of these homeowners personally, and this home is not on the market, if they think that their home is a giant piggy bank, or they hit the lottery with this particular home because it's an endless source of equity, well, chances are they're going to be in real trouble when they find out that's not true. And selling the home is not really a viable solution. They might be in real trouble. And again, I don't wish this on anybody. But if we continue to go down the list, what you're going to see is that this spans the entire geography of my market in Palm Beach County. But the same is true in every other market too. And in the future, I may do a deep dive on that. I just don't want this to be an extremely long video. But Palm Beach Gardens, Royal Palm Beach, 19% equity, Loxahatchee, 19% equity, and so on and so forth down the list. But I flipped the filter because I didn't want to screen through 29,000 results. And I went to the bottom of the list where there is no equity. And I don't believe this tracks for negative equity, but I don't know enough about PropWire to be able to make that determination. All I can see is that this home in Jupiter, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, which again is not on the market and it's owned by an individual owner, it's got no equity, which, depending on what market conditions are and what their financial circumstance is, could potentially be significant negative equity, which again means if you sell, you're stroking a check to the bank. Or maybe you do a short sale, or maybe you get foreclosed on, but chances are you're on your way to a bankruptcy and potentially a divorce and potentially a lot of other things. But again, I don't want this to happen to anybody. I would rather you know the truth rather than believe the lie, because the truth will set you free. And despite everything that's going on right now, the future looks bright. But Boca Raton is not immune. 3 bedroom, 2 bath, no equity. Loxahatchee, no equity. West Palm Beach, no equity. Palm Beach Gardens, no equity. And I know this home and I know this neighborhood, and I helped the buyer buy a home in there at a significantly higher price. But these folks who, again, the home is not on the market, but they've got no equity. And if they think they do, well, then I suspect they're probably in trouble. And it looks like we're starting to review my greatest hits, because I also helped the family relocate and buy on this street in this neighborhood. And what you can see is that this single family home, which is individually owned and evidently recently sold, but the new homeowner, no equity. And this corporate owned absentee owner off market property, which is not for sale, At a high price point, which is estimated to be around $1.9 million, it's got no equity, which I suspect might mean it was a bad decision by the corporation who bought it, who very likely thought that they would be able to rent it out and draw in an income, draw in passive income, and could set it and forget it because everybody knows that Airbnbs and VBROs are a guaranteed win. Nobody ever lost money doing any of that. And no, I'm not suggesting that investing in real estate is a bad decision. And truthfully, I don't know anything about that home or the homeowner other than what I already shared with you. But I do know that what I've said up until this point is not 100% true. But I do know, because I recently learned, and I'm sharing it with you now, that not every homeowner in my market is sitting on a metric shit ton of equity. In fact, there's 29,000 homeowners who barely have any, which might be fine, because the truth is, if the market goes to zero tomorrow and you don't have to sell, well, nothing really happened. And at some point, the home and the equity will trade higher. But if, God forbid, someone loses their job or some other financial catastrophe happens and they can't make the payment and they have to sell, if they thought they were sitting on a metric shit ton of equity and they don't have it, chances are life just got no bueno. And I read your comment. I know it's no es bueno, but I'm not changing for anybody because I can only be me. But I am committed to you and sharing the truth. If you need help with anything, please reach out. And if you happen to be one of those folks that has no equity and thinks they're in trouble and thinks there are no other solutions besides bankruptcy and foreclosure, please understand that's not true. There are solutions, but the solutions become far less available and much more unpleasant if you bury your head in the sand and pretend that they don't exist. So please do your due diligence, run your numbers, know where you're at, be prudent, responsible, and if I can ever help in any way, please reach out because who you hire matters.